I think last time, we spoke about how these wandering pieces of soul can be held in underground storage in the shadow, or, there with the guides of the underworld. Just to speak mythologically, if we might, for a moment. Persephone, Hermes, Sophia, the whole cast of characters, Asclepius. You sometimes hear of these figures as, which are known as psychopomps, whose role it is to guide us through liminal and transitional times, into and through the in-between places. What in the Tibetan tradition is referred to as bardo, B-A-R-D-O. And so we might imagine that these pieces of soul, though they're alone, they experience being alone, and they're often unable to reach us. We can't get to them. We might sense them. Sometimes we can't quite get to them. We can't quite see them, but even then, that they are nonetheless being protected, being held, being contained in some way by those non-ego aspects of the psyche, of the archetypal world, of the self. Kuan Yin, Guadalupe, white and green Tara, and of course, an infinite number of other figures and energies that don't fit into any particular religious, mythological, or spiritual tradition. But they're held until a time when those inner and outer resources are in fact available, when we're able to meet them again and to provide a temple or a sanctuary in which they can return. When those psychic and somatic enzymes that we spoke of last time, of presence, of compassion and love, are able to really metabolize and integrate the terror, the panic, the pain, the pure loneliness that these ones have been carrying for us on our behalf. And of course, as we all know, we'll find ways to erupt into our conscious awareness. And in this way, we can really start to befriend ourselves, and we can encode that new circuitry, that laying down of new pathways, new grooves in the psyche and soma and the nervous system, of meeting our embodied vulnerability with empathy, with wisdom, with kindness, with space. But it does take practice, this slowing down, and a real commitment and a devotion to our inner life. It doesn't just happen on its own. And perhaps it does also take some grace, which is wild and untamed and uncontrollable and unpredictable and totally out of our control and out of our hands. If it were in our control and if it were in our hands, it wouldn't be grace, it would be something else. And so no matter what arises in our experience, our commitment is to meet it in the immediacy of our embodied experience, to make that contact with it, even if it's only for a microsecond, and then we have to pull back. And then another microsecond, and then we pull back. And that next time it might be 2 microseconds, and then we pull back. But with as much presence and as much compassion as we can find. And this isn't some goal that we set ourselves up to fail at, which we inevitably will, all of us, but it's a practice, it's an inspiration, it's an aspiration, it's a prayer. Our inner alchemical lab work, where we experience and we experiment to see what it is that's most needed in a moment of overwhelm, in a moment of activation, in a moment when I've fallen out of center, And there's that activation, that triggering, that hooking, that claustrophobia, that looping, that restlessness, that feeling down. How can I come closer to myself and take care of myself in a new way? And at the same time, open to and access these deeper layers of the self and the guidance within that. Maybe I don't need to abandon myself in a difficult or a triggering or an overwhelming or an activating moment, like I was perhaps abandoned to as a young child in my family of origin. But to create that inner holding environment that we've been speaking about, made of those heart materials of presence, of compassion, of contact, of space. And in this way, we become that well-sealed vessel, that holding space in which these qualities can move through us and come out into the world. To a world that I think could use some of that about right now.